Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis. As always, joined by my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. We are, I wouldn't quite say 50% midway. We're close to halfway through the tournament in Madrid. For those who are listening, we're recording Sunday afternoon in the States. The latest result, Ben Shelton just lost to Mensik. Mensik beat him 6-1, 6-4. We'll talk a little bit about that. Didn't look like Ben was feeling that well, but some good matches Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we'll cover, Steve. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Friday. Let's just start with Friday, and I know we talked about her several times on this episode on this podcast before. Is Payton Stearns, and she plays so many close matches against very good players. Often falls a tad bit short on a lot of those matches. It was nice to see her get a win 7-5 in the third over Amanda Anisimova. She just backed up that win with beating a qualifier today. And then her next opponent is another test, Arina Sabalenka. But if you all remember Indian Wells 2024, not this past one, but in 2024, Peyton had a lot of chances in that match, Steve, to beat Sabalenka in that match.
Oh yeah. So I remember that's been the story of her life. But it's nice that she could follow up a harrowing match like the other day and win so easily today. And maybe that'll get her on the right path. You just need to. It becomes such a habit. When you start losing those close matches, you start almost expecting it. So now I think maybe that's going to free her mind, and she could have some good tournaments ahead.
What about she played, we talked about that match against Sabalenka in Indian Wells. That's a hard court. You're almost like, oh my God, Sabalenka's so her power overwhelmed people. Now they're going to play on a clay court. It's going to maybe minimize Sabalenka's power a little bit. However, it's also going to minimize when Peyton goes on the offensive with her forehand as well. So
Yeah, and I think that Sabalenka has shown, not that I'm counting Payton out. I just mean that Sabalenka, she's shown me in the last couple of years great improvement on the clay, patience, and an ability to hit through the court on clay that very few players have. She's better on hard, yes, but pretty darn good on the clay, as we saw a year ago in this tournament against Iga in an epic final. So I am expecting Sabalenka to play well. Although she did drop a set today, she's not at her very best, but she's playing consistently well.
yeah, it'll be a fun match to watch. All right. When I say this next one, this also occurred on Friday. Felix Auger-Aliassime, who has been really struggling, but if I said to you he lost to Cerundolo, you wouldn't feel like that's a horrible loss. The problem is it was to Cerundolo's brother, who is not right now at this present day as good as the Cerundolo that we've all known and heard about lately.
No, not nearly as good. And Medvedev beat him handily today, and that was disappointing for Felix. He had started the year so well, and he wins some titles, and we're all excited that maybe the old Felix is reemerging now in a bit of a slump. But I'm not that worried about him. I feel like get closer to Roland Garros, will be inspired to play for the fans there, and then it's a long year, and he tends to have these lulls, so I'm not that worried. But it was a shocking loss, no doubt about it. I just figured that was worst that could happen as he goes three.
All right, now we got to talk about yesterday. Yesterday being Saturday, and that's Arnaldi beating Novak. Now Novak has now lost his opening match four of his last five events. He won 10 sets in a row in Miami, and now lost five sets in a row from the Miami final. We remember that match against Mensik 7-6, 7-6 in the final of Miami. Where are we at with Novak right now, Steve?
Well, Miami was it looked like it was a turning point for the better because it was the best he played since his Australian Open semifinal showing when he had to retire against Zverev after beating Carlos. I thought, okay, that's going to carry him into the clay. I thought he probably should have skipped Monte Carlo because it wasn't a long break in between the two. He had a week, not a great period of adjustment, and he lost there to Tabilio in Monte Carlo in straight. And Tabilio had beaten him a year ago on the clay in Rome. Left-hander, tricky. Okay, I suppose you can excuse it, but he didn't look happy on the court. This time, I watched it yesterday. I didn't watch it live. I watched it later in the day on my DVR, every single point. I felt like he actually was hitting the ball much better than he did in Monte Carlo. It's just that he's not capitalizing on opportunities. I mean, that, for instance, he went down 2-love in the first set. He got it back to 2-all and had a break point and didn't convert. Then at 3-all, he had another long game, a chance to get to break point, misses an overhead. That opportunity gets away. And then at 3-4 in that first set, he's 40-30, seemingly ready to hold for 4-all, back in down the line, long, double fault, double fault. So a back-end error and 2 double faults in a row to lose his serve. He pretty much handed that set away. Then he picked up his game again, was holding easily up till 3-2 in the second set, playing well again, had love 30, missed a couple of returns in a row that you wouldn't normally see him miss. One was in the deuce court, and he wasn't pulled that wide. The second was just a kicker to his back end in the ad court. So that opportunity gets away. And then he gets broken at 3-all. Arnaldi played some great points at the end of that game, some great defending, extended points that Novak looked like he had won. But again, he was up at the net. He should have finished those points off. He didn't. He gets broken. He's down 4-3. And then he has love 40 and unable to break back there. Was forced into a forehand error. Then he went the wrong way after getting to a drop shot, and then he missed another forehand. So those break points just got away from him, and that was pretty much the match. 2 games later, he was beaten. So I felt like there were stages where I thought he was hitting the ball and moving like the normal Novak, but I felt like on the big points with opportunities in both the first and second sets, he didn't respond. I think he could have won either of those sets. And that he didn't have that high intensity that he seems to need. He smiled a few times. He was very good natured. When he hit some winners, he was kind of grinning like, oh, that's more like it. That feels good. But he also wasn't getting that angry when he was making errors. And I always think that's a good sign with him, that he's sort of demanding something, trying to pull something out of himself. And his comments were pretty negative afterwards. They were pretty negative going in. He said, I'm hoping I can at least win a match this week. Well, why would a guy who's going for his 100th career title allow himself to think that way? So my feeling, David, is that Murray would do him a favor to say, look, let's go to Rome and why don't we start with the idea that you're actually going to try to win that tournament? We don't know what's going to happen. But if you say to yourself, I hope I can win one match, you're sort of sending signals to everybody that you don't have any self-belief whatsoever. So I think it's as largely psychological. So I didn't see anything in his game that worried me that much. A few backhand down the line, long, he hit a few of them long, and a few errors off the forehand that were surprising. But by and large, hitting the ball well in the altitude, and I just felt like that when it came to the big points, he wasn't there in either set. And both of them, to me, were winnable. You saw him midway through the first and second set, you would say, he can win this set. He can win this match. It just didn't happen. So he's fallen into it's a head game now. He's now really doubting himself. And that's why you heard him make that comment going into the tournament, which was similar to Monte Carlo. Said he was hoping he could win some matches there too. And now, I think he just has to, it makes Rome, David, all the more important. He'll go to Rome. I assume he wouldn't play after Rome before the French. He might find an event the week before, but I think what he's really looking for is to at least get 2 or 3 wins, try to get to the quarters, try to keep going, get some sense of momentum before Roland Garros, because he keeps saying that's his goal. But in order to really make that impact in Paris, he's got to try to do something ahead of it to restore some self-belief.
And you kind of touched on it from himself, that he's going in with a little doubt, like, I just want to win 1 or 2. Not only is that self-doubt to him, but that gives energy and motivation to everybody else who's going to play him, because in the past, Novak wins a lot of these matches in the locker room before they even go out. Now Novak puts that in his opponent's head, and they're like, oh, he appears a little vulnerable here. Now the players, their opponents, have a self-belief that they can beat him.
Yeah, now look at Arnaud, a perfect example. He's had here's this Italian guy. He's had a very mediocre year, David, and he scrapes out a win over Kroric in the first round, 7-5 in the third, I think, nearly 3 hours. This kind of reminds me of Tabelio in Monte Carlo scraping by Stan Wawrinka. So in each case, he had an opponent that really had been struggling.
Right.
But they go out there with 2 things going for them. They have nothing to lose against Novak, and they know that he's filled with these self-doubts and insecurities now that didn't used to be there. I still think that can be changed in a hurry if he'd get on a roll, kind of like he did in Miami again, and just get back in that winning pattern. And but it's going to put some pressure on him when he goes to Rome. I think he's got to treat that first round, whoever his first opponent is in Rome, he's got to treat it like he's playing Federer and Nadal in the finals of a major. Yeah. He has to fire himself up in that fashion, because if he doesn't, the danger is it happens again.
I agree. Well said. We'll see how that all pans out as we continue along this clay court swing. All right. Last night, late afternoon in the States, last night in Madrid, a popcorn match that everybody had their eyes on, Steve, and that was Tommy Paul versus João Fonseca. And Tommy wins that 7-6, 7-6. Fonseca had his chances. I mean, my God, in both sets. The first set, Tommy saved 6 break points, 2 set points. He saved 2 set points in the second set as well. Tommy saved 10 of 11 break points. And the thing that Tommy had a game plan going in. I thought he mixed up his serve beautifully, and he fooled Fonseca a lot. A lot of times he was kicking it out to wide to Fonseca's backhand. He would fool him, go down the tee. He had 9 aces, Steve. That's a lot of aces, I think, for Tommy on a clay court in straight sets against an opponent like Fonseca.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. He mixed it up really well. He mixed up his ground game well, too. I mean, he played a very smart match.
He did.
Having said that, you alluded to all those opportunities, 4 break points at 1-0, 2 more at 2-0. So a lot of them were early. And then he started holding a bit easier after that. And then the set points, he's down 6-4 in the breaker. And Fonseca went for a bit too much on the first one on his own serve. Fonseca was first set point on his own serve, and he missed a forehand down the line long. And then Tommy outdueled him backhand to backhand on the next point, and eventually wins that 9 points to 7. Then 4-5 in the second set. Tommy had been up a break in the second. Then he's down 4-5, and he saved a couple of set points there with some clutch play. Again, so he made his way into the tiebreaker, which this time he won much more easily. It was clear cut. I was impressed because Fonseca, I think, came into that match pretty confident, not taking anything lightly, respecting Tommy Paul, but he's a cocky kid in the best sense of the word. He really conducts himself at times like more of a veteran. But on this occasion, it was really Paul who looked and felt and demonstrated that he was the veteran, and he was going to use his match playing experience to the hilt. And I was impressed with the win, because obviously, if you're down 2 set points in both sets, I mean, funny enough, it was the opposite way around when you look back at the Australian Open when he was playing Sasha Zverev. And in the first 2 sets of their match, Tommy against Sasha Zverev, he had set points in both sets, and he lost both sets in breakers. He won 1 point in the 2 tie breaks combined, and eventually lost the match in 4. But the match was essentially decided in the first 2 sets. So tennis can be exasperating that way when you're on the wrong end of that kind of a syndrome. This time, it was Tommy, and I loved his spirit, David. The best part of this match was he kept saying, come on, come on. You kept hearing it constantly. And it was the most emotive I've seen him in a long, long time. And I think it made a big difference that that he was allowing himself to be that demonstrative in the best sense of the word.
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on that, because Tommy has this generally relaxed attitude, and that helps in certain cases where you don't get too high, too low. And in matches like this, where he has come in with more experience, he's the higher ranked player. He's now playing Fonseca. The crowd's going to be going crazy. His quote after the match was like, "Look, I was looking forward to playing him. He was going to have fun playing him." And a lot of times, when you go in as like the quote unquote favorite, you're like, oh my God, I have to play a guy like Fonseca. It's my first match. You're going to be uptight and nervous. Tommy's demeanor just isn't like that. And I think that does him a lot of good when there's matchups like this.
It did him a world of good. And in turn, it kind of threw Fonseca. Fonseca, as you know, he likes to be very emotive. He likes to constantly be fist pumping. He seemed by his standards a bit subdued. And I think he could sense how much determination Tommy Paul had, and how badly Tommy wanted to win that match, and how Tommy was not intimidated by this young kid at all. And Fonseca felt that. And it was fascinating to no accident in the end to me that it was Tommy who prevails in the clutch in a couple of tie breaks, because it was just so clear how much he believed in himself and how much he wanted to win that match.
Shout out, just I know it's been a few years now. Brad Stein and Tommy Paul. I mean, what a match made in heaven for both of them. I mean, it's worked out so well, and I think Tommy now obviously when you get top 10, whatever it may be, each step up the ladder just gets harder and harder and harder because the margins are so much more thinner. But they
Well,
are
I
just
sense,
a
David,
good
it's funny.
partnership.
Brad Stein, I have a feeling he had quite a bit to do with it too, in the sense of the preparation. And he probably had done a lot of scouting on Fonseca, and they had a game plan that was apparent. And I think that no doubt he played a significant role in Tommy's win.
I agree. I agree. I love that partnership between them. All right, today, Sunday. Um, Out of the blue, we shall say. Now she is back with her former coach, Tom Hill, but Maria Sakkari, beat routinely Jasmine Paolini, who we know can play on this stuff. Paolini made the finals of Roland Garros last year. She can play. Sakkari smoked her pretty good. Now, this was the first top 10 win for Sakkari on clay since she beat Iga in the Roland Garros quarters in 2021 when Sakkari made the semis. Remember, she also made the semis of the U.S. Open in 2021. And then since that time, it's been extremely rocky for Sakkari. I didn't see this result coming at all, especially the score line that it was.
No,
I think it was
anybody did.
2-2, 2-2, or
Yeah, no,
something like that.
nobody saw it coming. And I mean, Sakkari's ranking has gone down to number 82. She does not belong in that territory. Maybe this should get her on a nice upward spiral again. I mean, it shouldn't take too much to get her easily back into the top 50, and then from there start making a move toward the top 20, which is where she belongs. And this will be a big confidence booster. It's a great clay court player, and last year's French finalist, and I feel like she needed a win like that. This should be very timely.
Well, it's not going to be easier next round because she plays the winner of Rybakina or Svitolina, which is going on right now. So it's just going to get tougher. But
yeah, it will be. But again, she'll go into that. She'll feel pretty good coming on the heels of this triumph.
yeah,
She'll go out there in that one and give herself a chance at least and feel like she's in it. And so, and if she doesn't win it, not the end of the world. She still had a really good win along the way. So I think this will, again, I think that it was a much needed victory, and I don't care what happens to her the rest of this tournament. It'll help in the weeks ahead.
hope so. All right, Sasha Zverev. I think he's turned a corner. He won the tournament, his home country last week, beating Ben Shelton in the finals. He played Davidovich Fokina today, and Davidovich Fokina has been playing really, really well. He's going to be dangerous in Roland Garros. Zverev wins 2-6, 7-6, 7-6. These are the matches that you expect Zverev to win. Maybe not as close as they are, but I think we're now at the point, and Sasha would probably agree with us, that his confidence is getting back now, and he's getting more self-belief that he's going to win these tight matches.
You're playing a Spaniard in Spain. It was quite a highly charged electric atmosphere. Zverev stayed calm for the most part. He did have a little altercation with the umpire over some calls, but
that one call was crazy. That one call was crazy.
It was. There were a couple of, but bottom line is he was letting it bother more than he should have, but not in a way where he brought the crowd down on him in an unruly fashion. He didn't let it get over the line. He didn't let it get too far. I think it helped him to vent. He did his venting. He lost the first badly 6-2, and it's 4-all in the second. And he's down 15-40, and match could have been gone. And he got out of that game. And then he played a really good tiebreak. I think 7-3 in that one. And they got third set. He serves for the match and pretty much chokes, to tell you the truth. 4 bad errors when he serves for the match in the third. But again, he then ended up losing 8 points in a row, but holds his serve to get into the breaker and totally just a perfect tiebreak. Blitzes through that tiebreak to close it out, 7-zip. And I felt like that was impressive because he had his ups and downs. He could have been gone in straight. He didn't serve it out in the third, but when push came to shove in both tiebreaks, he was not found wanting. He came through beautifully.
Yeah, so that's good. We want Sasha Zverev playing well going into Roland Garros and having a good Roland Garros. So that's
and he's got a great chance now. You think about it. I mean, obviously Novak is gone. Carlos had to pull out of the tournament. Holger Rune, after the first set of his opening match, had to retire with an injury that sounded somewhat similar to Carlos, as it was leg related. all these guys are gone, and it's not that it's any kind of simple path for Sasha, but he's coming off another tournament win, and now could be in with a chance to win this one.
Yep.
He's done it twice before.
Yep. And in a match that just concluded before we started to record, I was looking forward to watching Ben Shelton versus Mensik, and I think we group Mensik and Fonseca a lot together just because they're both very young. They're both very, very good. A lot of people have their eyes on both those players. Mensik beat Ben 6-1, 6-4. First set was very close. Second set, a little bit closer, but there's something Ben wasn't feeling. It didn't seem like Ben was feeling 100% out there. I don't know if that would have made a difference, but you would have liked to see both players at full strength at least.
Yeah, no, he asked for the tournament. The doctor, they gave him something for pain or whatever was going on. He was kind of listless. On the other hand, he really wasn't making any impression at all on Mencic's serve. And so that was a constant burden because Mencic was blitzing through his service games, and Ben was, lost his serve twice in the first set, saved himself in the second game of the second set, but finally at 4-5, he got broken. And unfortunate for him, but it was always going to be a tough match for him to win,
right?
Even if he was feeling 101%.
All right, so those are the highlights that we wanted to hit on. We'll do this again once the tournament's over, next Sunday night or Monday, whenever we schedule it. But interesting matches. There are some criticisms about the Masters 1000s extending it. The one thing that benefits us, Steve, is that I like these kind of mid-tournament recaps that we talk about the earlier matches, because if we just do one at the end of whatever it is, 12 days, let's say, these matches that we just talked about, they happened so long ago, we probably wouldn't give them the attention that they deserve. So for us, it actually works, but I know there's some negatives to it as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It gives us a chance to really dwell on them now while they're fresh in the public's mind and in ours. And then we can come back at the end and really assess everything that's happened from the round of 16 on. This was a good kind of midway point in the tournament to take stock.
I agree. All right, Steve. Well, I'm sure this week we'll continue to have great tennis ahead, and we'll do this again once the tournament's over.
Okay. Thank you, David.